Half a day. Welcome back to Boka Talks. We are a podcast on the KOAM Podcast Network. You can catch us on different platforms, right? Spotify, Pandora, SoundCloud, whatever platform we're on, catch us there. We are a podcast that focuses on bringing real life experiences, tying them into local experiences, and just making health, nutrition, fitness, making that fun for everybody. So let's jump right into it. Today I have a special guest, Josh Dunn. Can you tell us a little about yourself, sir?
Okay, my name is Joshua Dunn. I am a Yappies Irishman.
Yappies Irishman.
Yep.
Irish.
Hello, I'm married to a Chamorro, and I grew up here for the most part, right? So ever since a little bit before kindergarten is when I came here. I kind of grew up a sickly kid, so I had asthma and ear infections all the time and boils and stuff like that. So that kind of led into my health journey, but I didn't know it at that point, right?
I think you're the first Irishman I've ever met.
Right here. But my education, right? UOG, health science, concentration in public health. My minor's in psychology. I'm a certified integrative nutrition health coach. I'm also internationally certified to do health coaching. I am currently a grad school student, and my master's is in human nutrition and functional medicine. So right now I'm currently just swimming in the research and seeing clients as Dr. Wen sends them my way and working just to get people healthier on Guam, in terms of all this sort of lifestyle stuff that contributes to health.
Okay. We, Josh and I, along with Dr. Wen, we started this program for
Diet Beat It.
Yeah, the Diet Beat It program. And, it's focused on, because we have a high population of people that struggle and that have to deal with diabetes on Guam. And so we wanted to do something to kind of attack that. And the approach that we've kind of taken is, for a long time when I was doing a lot of nutrition education, right, for diabetes patients, the focus has always been maintenance, right? How do you manage and how do you control your diabetes? And when I met Dr. Wen and started talking to him and talking to Josh, we were on the same field in the sense that we believe that you could reverse your diabetes and get the body healthier. And that made total sense to me. You didn't have to just live with diabetes. You could do things, you could eat right, you could exercise and help your body to restore itself and to get better.
Right. And just to be clear, right, once you reverse, type 2 diabetes, which is reversible, that doesn't mean you can go back out there and have Slurpees and Pepsi and Coke all day.
Yeah.
It's a continual maintenance.
Yeah.
Right. So just to be clear on that.
Yeah. But again, it's changing the mindset, right? Changing the mindset that, hey, you're dealing with diabetes, but you could get a lot better. You don't have to just live with it and for the rest of your life. You could reverse it and live and have a better, outlook on life, right?
Truly.
How's that been going though so far with the program that we've been? I think we're in like 3 months plus with some of our customers.
So, you and I have seen some pretty drastic stuff.
Yeah.
Big dramatic weight loss. Just overall boost in energy. People sleeping better. And our approach is unique, right? So you're handling the food stuff, right? So we've given you sort of a guideline to follow, and you're following it pretty easily, right? And I just like to commend you for a second for doing that, right? Because that's a huge obstacle for people, right? This whole food thing, right? But yeah, people are getting better, right? Just following the food thing, and then they come in and they get health coaching from me.
And you guys look at their lab numbers and all that stuff, right?
Well, I'm just doing sort of just basic biometric stuff, right? So, if you come into our medically supervised weight loss program, a different story, right? Dr. Wen is taking labs, right? Doing physical exam and, based on that sort of writing the labs, right? What kind of labs are we going to order and how are we going to address this? But with the program that we have, it's a little bit more scaled back, if you will, right? So I'm just taking anthropometric measurements, blood glucose, blood pressure, which have huge implications, right? Those things can tell you whether or not you're at risk for, stroke, heart disease, and development of diabetes, which is associated with so many complications, right?
So we've had a bunch of customers, and like Josh has said, some of them have had drastic weight loss. That's really good. Some of them have even come back to us saying that their glucose is down a lot. A1C numbers are down. And a lot of the people, when they complete the program, the ones that have completed it, continue to stay on the program because they just like it and it's easy for them, right?
Well, you make it easy for them.
Well, we it's a team effort. It's a team effort here. But so with that, right? Besides just diabetes, right, and the issue that surrounds diabetes, there's a lot of other things that kind of plague the community on Guam, right? And one of the things that I've been reading up on and hearing about more now, more than ever, I think, metabolic syndrome, right? Can you explain what that is and kind of what happens?
So metabolic syndrome, it's kind of vague, right? So syndrome means sort of a cluster of signs or symptoms, and metabolism, right, is sort of a vague generic word for all of the chemistry that happens in your body, right? And of course,
how your body
a lot
breaks
of this,
down everything and puts them in certain areas.
And it's real broad, right? So, and that pertains to food and how you use your body and how you're exercising and utilizing sort of the calories that are coming in and stuff. Metabolic syndrome, the sort of classic signs and symptoms are high blood pressure, high blood sugar, higher BMI, specifically in the waist, and sort of dyslipidemia, where you have imbalance in your lipid panel, right? So maybe you have high LDL cholesterol, or you have high triglycerides, or something like that.
So, high blood pressure. You have overweight, assuming. You have excess fat around the waist, belly area.
Visceral fat.
And what was the other sign that you said?
High blood sugar.
High blood sugar. That's like almost, that's a lot of people here.
Yep.
Right? How is that like, do you diagnose people as having metabolic syndrome?
Well, I don't personally.
I mean,
doctors do.
Yeah.
Doctors do,
Okay.
based on, I think it's if you have 3 or 4 out of 5 of those symptoms, right? Something like that, right? And Dr. went on to talk a little bit more about that. But the interesting thing is those are typical things that happen, right? According to our environmental exposure, right? We're more or less exposed to a lot of the same foods and, plastics and just all this environmental chemicals and things that have come about in our new modern world. And our bodies are dealing with it. And one of the ways that they deal with it is, producing signs and symptoms that are consistent with metabolic syndrome.
So what are the implications? Like somebody comes in and say, hey, I think I have metabolic syndrome. Like what kind of issues are they facing? What kind of things does that lead to?
Well, it increases your risk for stroke, for full-blown diabetes. Just your quality of life is going to start to plummet, right?
So this can happen
for stroke, and that's one of the main causes for disability.
Yeah. So this can happen for people that are young too.
Yeah. Well, we're starting to see, people around my age, I've had friends and classmates that have had strokes early in their life, younger than me. I'm 33, so these problems are becoming more prevalent in younger ages.
Yeah. I think I remember I had a classmate. He had heart attack or stroke. He had a heart attack when he was like 30. That just blew my mind. I was like, man, but I mean, growing up with this kid, he always had bad health problems. He was obese. I remember going to school and the things that he ate weren't that good, but never dawned on me like, man, things catch up fast to you. The health implications are crazy.
And there's some level of genetic predisposition. You know what I mean? You might just be a little bit more likely to have blood sugar, high blood sugar, high cholesterol that could be running in your family. And that's just one way that maybe your genetics sort of deals with all of this environmental stuff, food being a huge one. Right?
When people are looking at weight loss, right? And you're looking at metabolism, would you say that metabolic syndrome has a big part in whether or not people are able to lose weight?
Oh, huge, right? So as we were saying earlier, right, if there's something wrong with your metabolism and how you break down, the calories that are coming into your body, one of those problems is storing it, right, instead of using it, right? So a lot of people will gain a lot of weight, but then they'll be tired at the same time when they're eating energy, right? So it's like kind of like this huge mismatch, right? So getting that whole rhythm and the metabolism back in rhythm is one of the main things that we're trying to do.
I've found that I personally, right, when I was on was it last year? I think last year I was on this journey, the self journey on trying to drop some weight, and I was working with some friends who were looking at metabolism as the cause, as a way to really look at how you're eating to lose weight, how you're eating to structure your exercise, and so forth. But one of the things, like I've done lots of diets. I've experimented with paleo, keto, macros, all the stuff, right? Everything that goes on, and it's better.
And me both, yeah.
And it for me, it gave me a better sense of how my body reacts and how I feel under certain diets, what works, what doesn't work, what the good, what the bad is, and how to just structure plans to help people, right? Being very realistic. But going back to metabolism, I never thought that in order for me to efficiently lose weight, right? You think that, if I'm going to lose weight, I'm just going to eat low calorie, and I'm going to change the macronutrient content of what I'm eating, and that should work. And exercise like a madman, and that should work.
The good old, exercise more and eat less, right?
Calories out, way more than calories in, but it never dawned on me that if I'm struggling and I plateaued and for some reason I'm not losing the weight I want, it could be a factor of my metabolism just not being in the right place when I need to, right? And so that kind of just blew my mind. How does metabolic syndrome affect that? Like if you think that your metabolism is messed up, can you fix that?
It's definitely fixable, right? The body has amazing capacity for healing itself, right? But we need to learn it, and we need to figure some things out, right? We need to dive into the research and find out what's working for a lot of people, right? And then start applying to ourselves and see how that works for ourselves, right? There's a fair bit of self-experimentation involved, right? Hormones, right? So hormones kind of change everything, right? It's one thing to think about just thermodynamics, calories in, calories out. It makes sense, logically, but when you throw in hormones into the mix, now everything kind of just gets a little bit wacky, a little bit, right? So regulating these hormones using food can give you the ability to bring yourself a little bit back into sync, right? Carb cycling, how we do, right?
Oh man, we're going to jump into that because that was something that after I talked to you about it, I did it and changed everything about the way I look at
right, and it's directly targeting hormones, and just really circadian rhythm, right, and how people are rhythmic. It's almost like when you have your baby, right, and you start to follow the rhythms of when baby eats and sleeps and things, right, and then everybody's having a happy day.
Yeah.
But
baby's happy, you're happy.
Right. But then when, you miss a nap here, right? Or, you push lunch a little bit too far back, now now baby's upset. Now everybody's unhappy, right? It's a similar thing happens to us as adults, right? So creating some kind of rhythm, right, to really balance out those hormones will give you the advantage to healing metabolic syndrome.
And just timing when you're taking in carbohydrates is a big way to adjust your hormones.
Well, cortisol and melatonin specifically, right? And a lot of other hormones kind of fall in line after cortisol specifically, right? Most people know cortisol as your stress hormone, right? And anytime you have a little bit of carbohydrates, you get a little bit of a bump in cortisol, right? So using, carbohydrates as a tool, right, provided healthy fats and adequate protein are there, right, you can begin to use carbohydrates as a tool to sort of bring your metabolism back into rhythm. And when you're in rhythm, then all of a sudden, when you go to sleep, you can burn off a lot of this fat, right? Because, fat loss is not really happening during exercise, right? You're losing it while you sleep.
Yeah. It's after at the end of the day.
Well, there's like, biochemical breakdown that happens when you actually sleep and you actually breathe out a lot of this fat,
The for a long time, right? The notion has been that if you're going to eat carbs, you eat it in the beginning of the day or the midday because you're still active, right? And you try not to eat carbs at night because, that's the body's main source of energy. And if you're not burning it, then it's just being stored. So when we were talking about it and you guys brought up carb cycling, I was like, okay, I was reading up about carb cycling, but I never thought to cycle my carbs at night and just save it for dinner so that it does exactly what you just said, right? How do you get people to kind of understand that concept that, hey, carbs are not bad, and if you eat carbs at night, you're not going to store it as fat?
Well, that's a tough one, right? Because there's this notion that you eat carbs, right? Especially white rice for some reason, right? It's been really demonized almost on Guam, right? Oh, I'm staying away from white rice in my attempt to
but I'm
lose
eating
weight.
white bread, right? Because I'm trying to lose weight.
And that just goes to sort of a lot of the sort of miseducation around nutrition, right? And that's why we do our work, right?
Yeah.
Carbohydrates, using it as a tool, right, to really establish this rhythm, right, to regulate your hormones, right? Because hormones are powerful things, right, that can change how you feel, change how your body takes the sugar in your bloodstream and puts it into the cells for energy, right? And if you're eating sort of problematic foods, right, and a lot of processed stuff, and mind you, when we're talking about carb cycling, we're talking about high quality carbohydrates here, right? Sort of moving past a lot of the fast food and processed foods and things in packages, and just getting away from a lot of this stuff that can last on the shelf for years and years, right? Because there's a lot of chemicals and things that also mess with your hormones, right?
So if you're trying to fix your hormones, it makes no sense to take in carbs, but the carbs that kind of mess everything else up, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly, right? Where we are just kind of inundated with all of this stuff, right? So as we continue to learn about nutrition, right, and food and stuff like that, it's almost so restricting, right? Like, oh my God, I just learned this new thing and now I shouldn't have this, right? Right. So really, embracing carbohydrates, right, as, okay, I can use this as a tool. I love carbs. We were sort of biologically made to like carbohydrates, it sets off our pleasure centers in the brain, so, but just using it strategically to alter our hormones so that we can have the advantage in healing things like metabolic syndrome and diabetes and all the things that it's associated with. And I just want to just clarify, right, because there's a few definitions floating out there of what carb cycling is, right? But our context is having a little bit of carbohydrates in the morning, a little bit more for lunch, and majority of it for dinner, but never really going beyond a whole cup of carbohydrates, right? And if you want to find out more, right, obviously come down to Boka, come down to New Gen, and inquire and learn from us. We're really open to teaching and getting people healthier.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been hearing a lot lately, customers coming in asking about our keto programs that we have, and they freak out when they're like, "Oh, you guys give carbs in your keto plans." I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you're supposed to eat carbs. It's the amount of carbs that we're looking at." Now, one of the misconceptions that I've heard about a lot is when people go keto, right? It's zero carb, and you shouldn't be eating any carbs, and that whole notion. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, just like I was saying earlier, right? And in terms of studying sort of ketogenic diets and things like that, every sort of bit of literature or research will define it differently, right? So some will define it as lower than 20 grams of carbohydrates. Some will define it as,
20%. 5% or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's even more problematic, right? So, okay, we're trying to establish the part within the whole, right? So what is the whole, right? So then, and, some operational definitions are, under 20 grams. Some are under 120 grams, right? So in general, keeping it low, right? In the grand scheme of your whole diet, having adequate protein and a lot of your energy coming from high quality fats is what the ketogenic diet is about. And getting a lot of, non-starchy vegetables to really just fill in the gaps of everything else, right? That is the main sentiment behind keto and the benefits that come from keto.
Do you think keto gives carbs a bad rap?
It kind of does. It kind of does. And there's some truth to it because, carbohydrates, we need to pay attention to, because if we're having too much.
But it's so accessible and it tastes so good.
Well, and we can talk about that a little bit later, right? Now that's moving into food politics, right? Yeah. And government subsidies, right? There's a reason why.
Oh yeah, we don't have enough time for that.
There's a reason why Pepsi's $1 and water's $1, right? Yeah. So the sugar that's in those kinds of drinks is carbohydrates essentially, right? So
that never made sense to me. Like I remember in college, my professor was talking about the government programs and this and that, and I was like, why, if we have problems with diabetes on Guam and the application and the education we're giving people is, okay, change your source of carbohydrates to whole grains, you're still eating a lot of carbohydrates, and that never made sense to me. And I was just like, and I asked my professor, I'm like, why is that? Why are we telling people to eat so much carbohydrates? And she's like, well, that's just what the government says. Then she went into food politics and all that stuff. And the conversation turned into a long discussion on what our beliefs are with food and how we have to take our beliefs and give that to other people.
Yeah, and really just encouraging sort of self-experimentation, right? Yeah. So as a health coach, that's one of my main things, right? It's like, okay, you don't have to do this diet forever, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just try it and we'll see how you feel at the end of this 3 months. And at the end of this 3 months, you, like most people, including myself, you're going to go astray every once in a while,
mm-hmm. But that's life.
Yeah, and that's the fiesta table. Yeah. Come on. So...
But every weekend.
But so once you sort of went through the 3-month program and you've established this new, quality of life, right? Where you're feeling good, you got a lot of energy. Maybe you dropped some weight. Maybe you've seen some improvement in your blood labs. When you go astray, now all of a sudden, oh shoot, I had this food, whatever it might be. You know the problematic foods that you might be eating. And now I'm not sleeping so good. Now I woke up and I feel kind of crappy, right? And so one of my main jobs is to say, okay, so you ate that food and it made you feel that way. right? So really establishing those connections, right? And oftentimes eating a whole bunch of carbohydrates is really zapping people's energy. And it's a weird sort of biochemical reaction, right? So when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, it actually suppresses your hormones that make you feel full, right? So this is the reason why people can eat a whole pizza, eat a whole bag of chips,
overconsume anything.
You're looking around like, oh, what's next? What's next here, right? So being conscious about the quality of your carbohydrates, right? Mostly complex, right? And here on Guam, we have the best kind. Breadfruit, tapioca, taro, dagu. Awesome carbohydrates.
But how many people eat that?
Well, my mom does, right? Older Yapese lady, she eats that stuff. And
I think that is one of our problems though on Guam, is that we have great sources of carbohydrates, nutrient rich, wholesome carbohydrates, but it's not widely utilized. And that's
it's not convenient enough, right?
That too, yeah.
And the truth is you're capitalizing on that.
And people don't know how to use it.
Yeah, true.
It's true. It's crazy. It's, man, like, it just blows my mind when I used to do a lot of nutrition education for lower income families, right? And I would go into their households, talk to them about the food that they're eating. And I would ask them, like, what do you guys eat? And they're like, tapioca, breadfruit. And I was like, man, we don't even eat this stuff. I mean, you guys are doing a great job. It's just we got to change some of the, the canned products that you guys are relying on, but you guys are eating good sources of food.
Right.
You have no idea.
Yeah, and that's and that comes sort of back to the quality of your foods, right? More often than not, if you're getting food locally, then especially in our case, we're fortunate enough to have all of these kinds of carbohydrates, growing on trees here.
One of the things you mentioned was about people kind of understanding, like you as a health coach, right? Your job is to help people understand how their body reacts when they eat certain things, right? For my staff here, I like to put them on our meal plans so that they can kind of understand that same concept, what it does for them, how they can convey what they learned about food through their personal experience to our customers. So I have one person who I put them on for for 4 weeks, right, as a starter. And the basis for their plans are very paleo-ish, very wholesome, unprocessed, lots of fruits, lots of veggies, controlled or, balanced carbohydrate, fat, protein content. But on the 3rd week, I say, okay, you can take 1 day and 1 meal to eat whatever you want for, something that you've missed for the past 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And you have to tell me when you're going to eat it. You have to tell me what you're eating and then call me the next day. And every time they go ham on, that 1 meal, and they call me the next morning and they're like, oh man, I feel like crap. And I'm like, you have to remember that. You have to remember and be cognizant about how your body reacts when you put either too much food or you're putting the wrong types of food into your body. Because we get so numb to that, right? A lot of people eat so much processed food, their body just gets numb and they don't feel that anymore.
Yeah, such a important lesson, right? From your ancient creature, right? Saying, hey, I thought we had a good thing going. What's going on, right? And, there's so many people, right? And this is part of the reason why I'm sure we do this work, right? Is a lot of people wake up in the morning and they feel crappy, right? And they throw their hands in there. I guess today's just going to be a crappy day, right? But my whole goal is to say, okay, why is it crappy, right? Let's figure this out. And the kind of health coaching that I do is, food is huge. It's foundational, right? But there's also all of this other stuff happening around, right? Stress, spirituality, exercise, how you're moving your body, and ultimately purpose, right? That kind of makes or breaks somebody's health journey, right? What are you doing this all for? When you get your health back, what are you going to do with it? Right? And that's often a question that really takes people back, right? It's like, okay, they fill out their intake form and I see there this is my goal weight, right? And in most cases, weight loss is going to be helpful, right, for a lot of the conditions that we see. And I say, okay, when you get to this goal weight, then what? What's next? And like, oh my goodness.
I don't know.
Clearly, I haven't thought this through, right? And,
I just wanted to drop 15 pounds.
Right, but then what is it all for, right? So I like to sort of think as health as the vehicle, right? And it's taking you where you want to go, right? So ultimately, you know, what do you want to stroll in? You know, you want to stroll in the Guam, or you want to stroll in, you know, whatever your midlife crisis.
That makes total sense. You know, one of the reasons I got into this career, right, was I was in high school. Growing up, I've seen my grandparents kind of struggle with their health. 3/4 of them were diabetic. My grandfather got amputated a few times, you know. Wow. And I would say the last 10 years of his life wasn't that good, you know. He just poor quality of life. And more than that, it was the burden on the rest of the family. My grandmother, the children that had to help him now, you know. And he hated his life, or it looked like he hated his life. Everyone was like struggling to, you know, keep him happy. But, you know, I looked at that and I was like, man, there has to be a way to not get people to that point, you know. And when you mention that in the morning you should be waking up feeling good, but a lot of people don't wake up feeling good, you know, that was, for me, that was the starting point. And when I started learning about nutrition and changing my diet, and I felt that instant when I woke up and I was like, whoa, what is this? Why do I have so much energy in the morning, right? And I kind of realized that it's just by changing my diet, I can feel good throughout the day, have energy all day, and not feel crappy. You know, that was mind-blowing to me. And I was like, there's something to this.
Right? Amazing.
Right?
Right? Amazing. Right? And that's why we do it, right? Because, and once I felt that, right? So, I mean, me personally, I kind of went down the sort of post high school on Guam, right? Where I got the restaurant job, and, you know, there was a bar there. We had you know, the shift drink and stuff like that. And, you know, you end up going to the venue, and then, you know, Linda's or King's after, you know, vicious cycle.
Good times.
Right? Right. And, you know, really just getting a hold of the nutrition part for me really changed all of that. You know, waking up feeling better and just wanting other people to experience that as well, right, is something I'm still getting used to as a health coach, you know, because some of my clients will say, you know, I feel great, you know, I'm feeling so good, I'm sleeping better, you know, and the implications of those things, just more energy and better sleep, right, is, you know, two typical common ones. The implications of those are massive, right? You don't want to know me on 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And that's probably true for most people.
And that's a whole different topic. But I know I was telling you this the last time we talked, was like when I started paying attention to my sleep, oh my God, life got way better, a lot better, just by, you know, making sleep a priority for myself.
Yeah, huge. And that comes back to how your metabolism is working, right? Your metabolism is going to determine how well you sleep, right? How much sugars in your blood is going to determine that as well. And how that affects all of your other hormones will determine the quality of sleep, right? Not just the duration, the quality.
Yeah, quality is a big thing.
You know, some people will sleep all night and they still wake up feeling tired, which is unfortunate.
As a health coach, right? What if there were, because we're like coming up to our time limit, but sure, as a health coach, if there were a few things that you could tell people to kind of tackle within their lives to fix their metabolism or to fix their health, what would those top few things be?
Let's see. Figure out why you want to do it. What's your grand purpose, right? What is that? What did you want to be when you were a little kid, right? What are your dreams and aspirations? What do you want your life to amount to? Because once that's clear in your vision, then all of the sort of trivial nutritional choices and whatever decisions that you need to make on a day-to-day basis, if they're not in line with that vision that you have, then you don't do it because your vision is clear, right? Your purpose is clear, and it just makes all of the little day-to-day decisions so much easier, especially in terms of nutrition, right? Which is obviously a big one for me, right? Getting your nutrition as close to as nature intended it to be is huge, right? Controlling your blood sugar is probably the next one, probably one of the most important parameters that you need to keep track of, right? And I always sort of oversimplify to some of my clients, right? And I say, hey, you know, when you go into the store and you see that Chamorro punch, right? And it's just syrup, right? You need to dilute that, right? Think about how your organs have to process syrupy blood, right? And how the sort of syrupy blood, what it's going to do to small vessels in your body, right? For example, the blood vessels in your eyes, right? They're super small. If sort of a really syrupy blood needs to go through it, it's going to damage it, right? If it goes down to the feet, that syrup's going to be hard to pump back up, right? So I think those are sort of my big ones, right? What's your purpose? Figure that out. Decide on it. Don't just wait for it to float around and knock you in the head. You have a decision to make. Sooner you make it, the better, right? If it's the wrong one, you can course correct later.
Yeah. Stay focused on your goal.
Getting your nutrition as close to nature intended as possible, right? Eat how your great-great-grandmother ate, right? It's kind of a good strategy to go about it. And be mindful of your blood sugars, right? And that's directly related to carbohydrates and metabolism, right?
Awesome. So if I really like this health coaching stuff because it gives people kind of like a personal trainer, right? But more on a health, more of a health and life aspect, right?
Oh yeah, definitely integrative, right? So
more than just fitness.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental work, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of attachments that people have in and around food, right? Oh, it's sad.
Oh man, that just brings up another topic on like food psychology and how that affects everything. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
but if people wanted to get a hold of you and to work more with you to kind of understand more about themselves and how to get themselves healthier, how can they reach you?
Sure. They can inquire at New Gen Physical Therapy and Wellness. You
guys just moved, huh?
We just moved, so we're at our Tumuning location, which is just right next to the old Greyhound. It's actually in Dr. Shea's old clinic, so we moved into his old clinic, and can check us out on Instagram and Facebook. You can type my name into Google and everybody knows their ways of finding those resources. It's a matter of applying the resources that we have. That's what's really important, right? Knowing's not enough, right?
Cool.
I wouldn't have a job, right? If that were true. Right.
So okay. Well, it was great talking to you. Thanks for coming on our podcast. To hear more, we're gonna call you back because there's like when you were talking, there's a whole bunch of other things that I was like, oh my god, we gotta talk about this, we gotta talk about that. So we'll get you back on other episodes. But thanks for joining us today. If you want to hear more of Josh and myself or some of the other people that I have on and want to learn more about health, nutrition, wellness, fitness, and kind of what works for them and what works for us, please check us out on Boka Talks. As always, you can find me here at Boka Box in Agana, and listen to us, follow us on the KOM Podcast Network, and we'll get back to you next week with another episode. And until then, adios.
Adios.